Welcome to the Leaders Insights podcast. Today's episode, brand architecture decisions that actually stick. Most brand architecture projects die quietly, not in the boardroom, but in a product meeting 6 months after the strategy deck was approved. Why does execution collapse so predictably?
Because the strategy gets handed off. A consulting firm builds a beautiful architecture model, leadership signs off, and then the people actually naming products, briefing agencies, and negotiating with acquired company founders have never internalized the logic. They're making daily decisions without a framework they understand or trust.
So the document exists, but the decision-making muscle doesn't. How do you build that muscle before the pressure hits?
You stress test the architecture against real scenarios before you finalize it, not hypothetical ones, actual pipeline. If you have 3 acquisitions in diligence and 2 product launches planned for the next 18 months, you run your architecture model against each of those. Does it give clear guidance on whether the acquired brand lives, gets absorbed, or becomes an endorsed sub-brand? If your team argues about the answer, the framework isn't done yet.
Procter & Gamble is the textbook example of a house of brands. Salesforce, the master brand, pulling everything in. But most companies are stuck somewhere in between. Is the hybrid model actually manageable, or is it just indecision with better branding?
It can be either. Hybrid works when you have explicit rules about which category gets which treatment and why. Alphabet operates a hybrid that holds because the logic is clear. Moonshot stays separate. Core business stays Google. Where hybrid falls apart is when the rules are implicit, when it's basically, we'll figure it out case by case. That's not architecture. That's political negotiation dressed up as strategy.
When a CMO inherits a messy architecture, multiple acquisitions, inconsistent naming, brand equity scattered everywhere, where do they actually start?
Revenue and customer recognition. You audit which brands are generating meaningful revenue independently and which ones customers actually ask for by name. Gartner published data earlier in 2026 showing that in B2B specifically, over 60% of acquired brand names lose meaningful customer recognition within 4 years of acquisition if they're not actively maintained. That's the business case for making a decision fast rather than letting it drift.
What about internal resistance? Founders of acquired companies, product teams who've built identity around their brand name.
That's where most CMOs underestimate the political cost. The strategic answer might be clear, but the human answer requires a transition narrative. You need to give people a story about what the brand evolution means for the work they did, not just what it means for the portfolio. At HubSpot, when they absorbed several point solutions into the core platform over the past 2 years, the framing was capability expansion, not erasure. That distinction matters enormously for retention and internal buy-in.
One thing a CMO can do this week to make their architecture more durable:
Write down the 3 decisions your architecture should make automatically, without a meeting. If you can't write them down clearly, you don't have an architecture yet.
To go further, Leaders Insights offers strategic training programs, diagnostic tools, and an executive self-assessment designed for CMOs, CDOs, CFOs, and leaders aiming for board-level performance. Explore everything at mba-training.com. Thank you for listening to the Leaders Insights podcast. See you tomorrow for another episode.